So I fucked up. I was supposed to come to the pod recording at 6:30 and I came at 7.
I also didn't wake up from my alarm. Priya woke me up.
Yeah, I like knew something was off because there was no activity in our group chat this morning. And like, I'm usually never the one that starts it, but one of the two of you are.
Yeah, because it's like kind of us like signaling to each other, you're up? Yeah, I'm up. and I was not up. Oh my God. Wait, so what time did you have to go in and wake her up?
I woke her up at like 6:35 because I was standing near the door and I texted her and I was like, hey, are you ready? And then I got no response. And also like her music hadn't been playing. So I was like, there's no way she's up.
There was like no sign of life.
I love how you waited till 6:35. I feel like 6:20 I would have busted open the door.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I just like wouldn't do that.
Yeah. But we left by like 6:45.
Yeah.
Honestly impressed with myself. Like unimpressed, but then impressed.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
Like I recovered it well.
No,
and then I remember we like came down the stairs and you can see our pod studio when you're walking and the lights were dark.
I was like gonna be like, I'm so sorry, Maya. Like I had my apology ready to go in my head. And then I was like literally like preparing and then the studio was empty. Because I was like, oh my God, she's been sitting here for 15 minutes. Like
no.
Also like Priya's reaction to everything, even if she's pissed in her head, is just like, it's fine.
It's fine.
But I was like, Maya's gonna be really pissed.
Oh my God. And then you called me and then I didn't pick up.
Yeah. And then Anika was like, you should FaceTime her. So then I FaceTimed you twice and you didn't pick up. And so then we were just sitting here being like, what
and
now?
then Priya was like, yeah, I don't think I can record in the evening because I moved all my morning meetings to the evening.
Cool. Welcome back to Get the Check. I'm Maya.
I'm Anika.
I'm Priya.
And today we have a really fun lineup. We're going to be going over Nucleus Genomics' release of Nucleus Embryo, which allows you to compare IVF embryos beyond just normal genetic orders. And you can actually look at things like height, eye color, and IQ. And then you can pick, it's like shopping. You can pick your little embryo that you want. And then we're going to be going into the IPO landscape. Both Omada Health and Circle had an breakout IPO, so IPO landscape is looking good, and we're going to cover some upcoming ones as well. And then finally, we'll be going into the AI trend report that was released by Mary Meeker. She is known for her internet trends reports, and she stopped doing them in 2019. So the fact that she dropped one on AI 5 years later and is back is very cool, and the community has been freaking out about this.
It was like 340 pages.
It was 340
I'm really
pages.
excited about her. So I feel like this is like an artist that everyone's been waiting for their album to drop. Like
it felt like that.
Of one. Like Rihanna dropping an album.
Yeah, because it's like you think they're in retirement, but they're not. Yeah, and they come back and you're like, no way. Anyways, yeah. So moving into Nucleus Genomics.
Yeah, they're a genetic testing startup that started in 2021. And at the time, the goal was to just calculate a patient's risk for a specific disease. So it totally made sense. It's basically if you take 23andMe or any other genetic testing company and you get the results of that, you can then send it to Nucleus Genomics and they would tell you if you have like a genetic predisposition for something, and they were using polygenic risk scores. And so last week, what came out is that they announced Nucleus Embryo, which, like Maya said, you can basically look beyond just like prenatal testing and genetic testing and things like that. And you can actually look at like physical traits of the embryo, which is crazy.
I took like a tour of their UI and it's literally like a shopping catalog. Like I was like, this is crazy. You can like pick your hair and your eye color. I mean, you can't like edit them together, obviously, but you can pick the one
best
embryo that looks best. Yeah, I would totally pick like blue eyes if that came out.
I know, but the trade-offs are so hard. Like when I was actually looking at them, I was like, oh my God, but what if they're a little dumber? Like it's okay if they don't have blue eyes, you know?
None of the embryos are gonna have blue eyes. So you're not even approaching this problem.
That's true. And with Nucleus Embryo, you can compare up to 20 different embryos, and it's $5,999.
Yeah, and their normal polygenic risk score testing, which is like basically just like testing your DNA, is about $39 a month. But you can also order the test through them instead of like a 23andMe if you want, and then that's another $399. And he talks a lot in interviews about the pricing and how it used to be millions of dollars, and then when he was studying, it went down to like hundreds of dollars, and that's when he realized there'd be a good consumer product. And he thinks that in the near future, it'll be like tens of dollars and everyone should just get one.
Their closest competitor is Orchid Health, does the same type of genetic testing, and they're charging approximately $2,500, so a little less. But I think Nucleus Genomics can charge more because, like, as soon as you provide a little extra, like that many more features, like if someone's in the market for IVF, like what's $3,000 more? Like,
yeah, it's really nothing.
It's nothing in comparison to like the 50 to 100K that they're spending overall, and it's also your kids. So I can totally imagine like getting that extra bit of insights people would definitely choose Nucleus. But I wanted to go over specifically the difference between like what rare markers are and polygenic scores are, because this is a new type of genetic testing. Before, rare markers were just like, before when they used to screen embryos, they would just screen for like rare mutations or like single gene mutations where you could easily find like something that's wrong.
Like Down syndrome.
Yeah. Versus polygenics testing is like looking at the whole genome and then seeing like all the different inconsistencies and then stacking all those inconsistencies together to be like, oh, what's the most common disease that'll come out of this? Because a lot of things are like polygenetic, meaning that there's like many different mutations that will come together to then get you to have that disease. And so like previously it was really hard to do polygenic scoring, but now they can. And so what they do is they take a genome from a person, they count up all the variants, and then they multiply each variant by its effect number, and then you get that score for that category.
And it's not just like vanity metrics like height and IQ that have come into play. Before, like you also weren't seeing like probabilities of different cancer and things like that. They're only doing like very rare diseases like cystic fibrosis, Down syndrome. So even from like a health perspective, there's a lot of like additional health markers.
Yeah. And I think that was like the clear like reason as to why they went after this. It was to go after more health markers. And I think there's still things that they can't do. Like, for example, ovarian cancer is still really hard to detect. But out of it came the fact that they were able to detect height and eye color better than they ever have before.
People are still like really skeptical of it. Mm-hmm. There's been like a ton of controversy from like the world of doctors on like polygenic risk scores and like if they're actually accurate or not. There were like studies that say that they only explain a small percentage of the total variance in disease risk, like it's only 1 to 5%, and there's like varying numbers depending on like which studies you look at, so this isn't like the hard truth.
It also depends a lot on the marker. Like from what I read with like height, people think it's like 60 to 80% accurate, but then with IQ there's studies that say that only like 6% of IQ is even due to your specific DNA or tied to your DNA. And so it seems like with IQ, people come out to say like maybe your different embryos have like a 2 to 3 IQ point variance that you can directionally select for. The reason I'm saying directionally is because this is like a probability game. It's not like you're actually selecting an embryo that you know has like whatever trait it is.
Yeah.
And so I guess like where I ended up as like someone that's more in the middle who doesn't think it's like pseudoscience but also thinks that like the company itself is probably overhyping where they're at. Is that like I would trust something like height to be directionally true or like some of the major diseases, but not like IQ necessarily.
Yeah, there's actually a study done in 2019, given the state of 2019, that said if you were to like pick always the best like IQ baby during IVF, you would only result in a population of 2 points higher than in IQ than the average. It's probably gotten better, but it just kind of puts into light like how much of an effect specifically for like the intelligence category. The other thing about this is all of this is based on what they call geno-wide association studies. So what they do is they like take a pool of people who have a specific trait and then compare it to a pool of people who don't. And then they're like, okay, this genome is associated to this type of like these types of markers or this type of sequence. But a lot of GWAS, which is like the studies, are done by Europeans and like European firms. And so all the GWAS are calculated from data on European populations. So then what they do is they look at your like how far you are from Europeans in terms of ancestry, and then like modulate your risk score down.
Like our embryos would be way less predictable than like a European embryo.
Yeah, because the data set is European based.
Yeah. So I think that's another part of it is that they're not very obvious about it. Like in their marketing material, they do mention it at some point in terms of like their science and like their effectiveness and stuff.
I think the other part that's like relevant here is there's like gene editing / mutation, which is like CRISPR, and then there's this, which is more like genetic predicting and selecting. The founder, Kian Sadeghi, he basically worked in gene editing like before all of this and worked on like different CRISPR stuff, but then like this company is all about like predicting and selecting. And he basically said his cousin died from, it seems like a preventable disease, like a genetically preventable
like a rare
disease.
Heart condition or something.
Yeah, that she like died randomly one day in her sleep, and that was like his motivation. But I thought it was interesting that he has like a background in like gene editing, and the reason that's more controversial is because gene editing, like specifically, people think has like even more risk of like other health complications that could end up in the person.
Yeah, so there's like two types of gene editing. There's somatic and germline gene editing. And so somatic gene editing is fully allowed, and people do it today in the United States. And it's basically edits that are made to non-productive cells to treat diseases such as sickle cell or anemia or things like that. And you use CRISPR to edit the genes. And so this only affects the individual, and effects aren't inherited by like future generations, versus germline editing, which is the more controversial thing that I would say like in general people agree that we shouldn't have germline editing. And that's edits to reproductive cells that can be passed down to future generations. So like something like eye color, for example, would fall into that category. And so germline gene editing is banned not only in the United States but like everywhere else effectively, like from some law or another, versus somatic gene editing does take place today.
Did you guys read the baby KJ thing?
No.
Oh, wait. Okay. So like, I don't know if you guys saw this, but coincidentally to like all of the Nucleus Genomics stuff, I think a week or so ago, they had the first instance of ever doing somatic editing in like an alive human, where, so there's like deleting and then there's editing, and they had the first instance of doing like CRISPR editing in an alive human, and they did it in a baby who basically had CPS1, which is an ultra rare disorder where like your body can't like get rid of ammonia, so you have ammonia buildup and then you die. And there's this baby, I think he was born in August of 2024, and he's been in Philadelphia and like basically at like the Penn Children's Hospital, which happens to be like the place best at this. They basically had like a bubble almost with like the exact coordinates of like where in his body it needed to go and like how to edit it, and it like worked. And it's like the first time that they've ever done it, and they like cured, or they don't like to use the word cure, but they like fixed him. Like he got like discharged home, and he was like supposed to die.
Oh,
but
so this was like after he was born.
Yeah, it was after. It's the first time it's ever happened.
So you can do gene editing after someone's born?
It's the first time it's ever happened.
Wow.
That's why it's like a huge deal. And like the total cost of the work that they did on baby KJ, it all totaled up to like millions of dollars. Oh, wow. And so they were like, it's like really good news, but it doesn't actually like matter for anyone because like you'll never get access to it. It's just like this baby got lucky.
Yeah.
Because it's like millions of dollars, so it's not scalable.
Well, right now.
But that's like anything,
Yeah.
At least like in the thing I was listening to, they're like, it's like no time soon, because the reason why they're able to do this is because the NIH is like so well funded on things like this, but like all their funding just got cut. But then there's like the famous germline editing example of the Chinese doctor like a few years ago.
And that didn't turn out well.
He got thrown in jail. Today in the United States, you're not allowed to use federal funds to research genetically editing any embryos, and the FDA is also not allowed to review any applications that involve genetically modifying embryos. So it's like not outright banned technically, but since the FDA is not allowed to look at any applications, it's like effectively banned.
And this is specifically for embryos, not like real babies.
Yeah.
That have, or I guess like embryos are babies, but like babies that have been born.
Yeah.
But it's only like there, you can do it if it's like somatic, but you can't do it if it's germline. Yeah,
we allow pre-implantation genetic testing, which is like what we were talking about earlier in the episode, and that's PGT, which is like super common, and most people that do IVF do PGT to make sure that their babies don't have any specific like
Down syndrome.
Well, this gets into the whole disability,
this gets into
the disability part of it, but it's like,
well, I think it's just like the overall ethical debate of not of gene editing, but of selecting like certain types of embryos.
Yeah, like disability advocates say that it's not a natural part of human diversity. So that's like their take on it. And then there's the eugenics take on it. And then there's also the unintended harm that could last generations. And then a lot of that comes from like the consent of future generations.
Yeah, I think we can start with the eugenics debate, which is basically like, eugenics is basically that idea like Hitler's most famous for having, where like he wanted to breed like blue-eyed white people. And so at that time, historically, he basically had forced sterilizations of different types of people. There have been forced sterilizations in the US as well, especially of like native people or disabled people, in an effort to genetically optimize, which I think everyone agrees is bad. Like, obviously the government shouldn't decide who can and can't have kids.
Yeah. I mean, people forget that the US actually has a long history on eugenics. So basically in the late 1800s, Francis Galton, who's the half cousin of Charles Darwin, begins this study, and it's like, hey, like if you breed two good people together with good genes, you'll have like a good baby. And so we should start to promote these like suitable races and strains of blood. And so then people at Harvard and the academic community was like, obviously this makes sense. And they were like, okay, we should take all the intelligent people and breed more intelligent people. And so there was so many presidents of Harvard that actually supported eugenics, even to the point where like there was like US sterilization laws passed in the US. And so there were so many Supreme Court decisions of like trying to overturn this law, but they would just go back to like, no, you should be sterilized because you have a disability, and objectively the baby like could have like a bad life or something like that. And so they would forcibly sterilize these people. And then this essentially the US was very pro eugenics until Hitler popularized it. And it was like now not cool to support Hitler and the Nazis. And so then eugenics was not as popular anymore. And so then at that point people started raising questions of like, oh, should we be practicing eugenics? Is this a good idea? And then that's how the idea started to fade from the US, but it was like up until I think the 1980s that not all the sterilization laws were removed.
That's crazy. So like what was the exact law?
There was a bunch of like statewide laws,
And it would just like sterilize people that had disabilities.
Yeah, we also like mass sterilize like native people,
Yeah.
which is like not super talked about. And
it was said as many as 70,000 Americans were forcibly sterilized during this time.
Yeah, and I mean like the Harvard study I think is like how people do naturally select for each other. Like if you look at just like how people select for each other, you usually do select for people that are similar to you in like different facets of your life, but it's different when it's like your choice versus like the government that's trying to selectively breed populations.
yeah, Keon was talking about it in one of his interviews because they're talking about like, oh, what if you want like a tall baby or a smart baby? And he was like, yeah, like we might give you 4 embryos to pick from, but if you want a tall baby, then like marry a tall person. If you want a smart baby, marry a smart person.
Yeah. I mean, that is the best way to get like that characteristic. And I feel like it should be uncontroversial to like want to pick characteristics, because in the past, eugenics has always been associated with violence and coercion and, you know, suppressing racial groups, and has been associated to racism. And I don't think this is that, if that makes sense.
Well, yeah, there's obviously like, I think everyone agrees that like Nucleus Genomics is like within the private sphere, and like all the examples we're giving are within the public sphere of like government sponsored actions. And I think everyone agrees there's obviously a moral distinction between the two, but I think when it gets tricky is like you can already see gray areas. So like there's the GINA law, which basically says that like health insurance companies and your employer can't use like your DNA against you when deciding whether to hire you or give you health insurance. But like life insurance companies for some reason are exempt from that, and like they can use your DNA testing. Could there be a future where like the government imposes like a tax on people that knowingly decide to have like kids with a certain disease because they know that like that imposes a certain cost on like healthcare, right? Like it becomes a slippery slope.
Like, is it ethically okay to have then a baby predisposed to diseases?
I think it's like two conversations, right? Like I think there's a conversation around if it's like ethically okay to have a baby you know will be sick, but then I think there's another conversation where like everyone agrees the government probably shouldn't get involved in something like this.
I think the percentage of people that would actually choose to have a sick baby is like so small that it's not even worth the government's time to really look into this issue. 10% of the US population, for example, is born through IVF, and the people who are choosing IVF likely have the means to pay for IVF. I just don't think that there is a huge percentage of the population that's actually choosing sick babies at the end of the day. And so I think it's really more of the first debate of like, is it ethically moral or not to be like selecting against disabilities and diseases And that's like its whole other conversation. But I think once it goes past that conversation and it becomes starting to talk about the government, what are they going to do to intervene or maybe to not intervene? I actually just don't personally think that people will actively choose like the weakest embryo.
It's also like, given the people that do IVF, like it definitely skews towards like upper class, and it says specifically like white and Asian backgrounds are the people that typically do IVF, because like an average IVF cycle costs $50,000, but it's possible for it to be way over that as well. And so because of that, there's already such a small percentage of people doing it.
It's also like the idea of like a genetic overclass, right? Where it's like one more advantage that rich people get, which is that they get to select like their best embryo in terms of disease, intelligence. And I think that's like a valid concern. And that's like obviously a true outcome of this, because it's like thousands of dollars to do.
Yeah, I think I think the study about like the IQ points not actually increasing makes me feel like less worried about the intelligence factor. I do think the like height and color, like eye color, is like at least I think attractiveness plays into your like role in society, and like attractive people genuinely get more things in life. And so I do agree that like, okay, if you're able to pick a more attractive baby, then like rich babies are like always more attractive and they always get more privilege as well from that. Another thing I found that is that intelligence of a baby is influenced by the nutrition of the mom during the pregnancy. And so a study in China showed that iodine deficiency can cost children as much as 12 IQ points. And that's a larger delta than whatever you're getting out of your embryos.
Wait, iron deficiency?
Iodine deficiency.
Oh. What does that come from?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay.
But
yeah, I mean, if you think about like a kid's like intelligence / smartness, and I know like IQ and smartness aren't like 1-to-1, but obviously like if you pay for your kid to go to Harker, that's like more consequential than the embryo you're selecting.
Or SAT prep or something.
Yeah, and I don't think anyone disagrees on that. I think it's just like this is one more thing that's going to exacerbate the inequality that already exists between like opportunities that the privileged class has. But I don't think like that means that the government shouldn't allow it the same way like they allow private schools, or like, I mean, there's like a million things.
Examples.
Like even something like vaccines, which like the entire developed world has, but like there's still a lack of access in like certain parts of the developing world.
Yeah. I mean, the way you prevent against this is that you just lower the cost of the thing that gives you an advantage.
And that's like basically what Nucleus Genomics says every time they're asked about it. It's like, you guys, like they basically say like all our critics just like sit there and complain, whereas like rich people already have access to it in the status quo, and the only people increasing access is us, and like they're not wrong.
Yeah, I saw that like on the DL everyone already does this. Did you guys see that?
Oh yeah.
Well, it's not that DL.
The competitor, which is Orchid Health, has been doing this for the last couple of years
with like height and eye color and stuff. That's crazy.
Are they just more expensive?
No, they're less expensive. They're $2,500.
I think that the best argument against allowing something like this is that you basically create like a plastic surgery effect in like a drive to get a perfect baby. Like the same way, like in a one-off situation, like you think about a girl that wants a nose job and gets it for her 16th birthday, and it gives her a ton of confidence. And it's like, is that a bad thing? Like, no, I don't think anyone thinks that's that bad of a thing. But then you look at like what society has become, because like plastic surgery and fillers and like all those things are so normalized. And it's like, I feel like everyone agrees the net effect on society has been bad, even if like you're not judging an individual for making the choice. And I think that's like the best argument for banning it, but I'm not pro banning it.
That makes sense.
But if I had to make an argument, that's what I would make. What I would say.
Yeah. That makes sense.
So would you guys select your embryos?
1,000%. If I was doing IVF, I think I would. Like if
I feel like everyone would. I think the only place where people start to disagree is what you would look at. Look at everything.
I would fully. I'm like, if you're gonna give me the catalog, like I will choose the best embryo.
But I asked a ton of friends because I was actually curious, and like there were people that were like, I wouldn't look at like anything besides disease.
Well, because you have like a preconceived notion of things then.
Well, I don't even think that people were saying it for the preconceived notion. I think it was more like ethically they're like against trying to optimize your baby.
Yeah.
But I feel like that's what motherhood is like optimizing.
But I think people
your kid.
approach it differently.
I would look at the like embryo and it'd be like, okay, she has 1 IQ point lower.
Okay, so you're already having a girl.
She has blue eyes. I feel like that's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like nurture can get her the other IQ point.
Yeah, exactly. Anyways,
Maya like really wants this blue-eyed baby, and it's like not gonna happen. Like I'm waiting for the day when Maya pulls up her Nucleus Genomics to search for the one that says blue eyes, and it's like brown.
20 in a row.
The last ethical concern that I think is the actual dumbest is like children's autonomy.
oh, because they didn't
'cause,
consent
like,
to
you
like
can't
And
being
like, this is
chosen.
actually
Yeah.
like a huge argument that people say like in order to start a parent-child relationship off on ethical terms, you shouldn't do genetic selection because the unborn child didn't consent. And like when
Well, you don't really consent to any of your childhood.
yeah. Like, hello. But when you guys first brought it up, I was like, wait, but like you don't consent to being born.
There was this like case where the girl was trying to sue her parents for making her be born.
Honestly, valid as fuck.
And I was like, oh, you have bigger
Anika would
issues.
do something like that.
Yeah. I argued with my parents all the time about like I never wanted to be born. No, I'm grateful now, but I wasn't at the time. There's this philosopher, I'll just give him a quick shout out since he's like the expert on the matter. Jürgen Habermas. I probably butchered that, but he basically I honestly think he's super dumb, but maybe I haven't just like given his thought enough credence. But he says this whole thing about like consent and autonomy, but then he's like, oh, if it's a serious disease, then that actually is like attempting to preserve autonomy. But it's like not making a choice is a choice. Like what if the kid's born and is like, I didn't consent to you like not making the best choice for me given the information you had. Like that seems like even more valid. And then this other philosopher is like, actually it's immoral to not select the best. And then I was like, wait, that actually makes a ton of sense
yeah.
too.
Well, that's kind of what Nucleus Genomics is saying too.
Well, but Nucleus Genomics says like you should do what you want, like because they don't want to get into the actual debate. So for everything they're like, we give information, like if you don't want us, that's fine. If you want us, that's fine. Like do whatever you want. Obviously I'm sure their actual personal philosophy is like you're a dumbass if you don't like look at it.
Yeah, definitely something worth a longer debate on, but we have things to do, and so we're
Maya's like, let's move this along.
Yeah, definitely a debate worth talking about, but I think we covered the meat of it here. Moving on to the IPO landscape. The IPO landscape is opening up across industries. According to EY, in Q1 2025, IPO market experienced a 55% increase in the number of deals compared to Q1 2024. And last week, Circle and Omada Health IPO'd, Chime filed for an IPO, and Gemini confidentially filed. But I guess we all found out.
Nothing's confidential these days.
Yeah. The U.S. market recorded 59 IPOs in Q1, which is roughly $8.9 billion, on par with Q1 2024's $8.8 billion. So I think the number of IPOs is higher, but the actual dollar value is equalized right now. But yeah, let's start with Circle.
Yeah, Circle had an insane IPO last week. They IPO'd at 31 and then hit the circuit breaker like almost immediately. So trading was halted, and then they ended the week at $115.
It's crazy.
So if you got in an IPO, you're lucky.
It's the largest crypto industry listing since Coinbase's 2021 IPO. And a little background on what Circle do: they are a stablecoin.
Yeah, they're the issuer of the stablecoin.
Yeah.
So they issue USDC, which is the second largest stablecoin after our favorite Tether.
Yeah, and it's pegged to the US dollar, and it's basically like the regulated crypto pegged to the US dollar, which has a ton of use cases like cross-border payments.
Yeah. And it's the one that Coinbase backs too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's a Coinbase Circle like collab, right?
Yeah, it's a little collab.
We covered it in our Coinbase episode if you want to go watch.
Yeah. That was actually a good episode.
Yeah. Fun fact, they actually tried to IPO via SPAC merger attempt, which is basically a SPAC is like a publicly traded company that raises cash and then pulls a private company buys a private company so that they don't have to go through the normal IPO filing, which makes it like, I think it's like easier and faster to complete. And then that public company now gets the valuation of what the private company like would have. And so they tried to do this back in 2021. And then in 2022, they upped the value to $9 billion because like crypto was like doing really, really well. And then you hit the FTX explosion. And so the SEC basically never cleared the registration statement by like the date of like December or something like that. And so because the SPAC market was in free fall and the FTX implosion happened, basically Circle just never IPO'd via SPAC.
Via SPAC, yeah. And what's interesting, according to their S1 filing, is that 98% of their income last year in 2024 was generated from their USDC reserves. And so they're basically making all their money in the assets that back the stable coin.
Yeah.
But the reason this has worked out so well for them is because like Fed rates are high right now, and the Fed is expected to cut rates later this year and like in the future as well. And because they're tied to the Federal Reserve, every 25 basis points that the Fed lowers interest rates, they'll also lose $100 million
Oh my
of their
God.
earnings because they're so closely tied to it.
Wait,
So
that much of their earnings is just off of like their return on assets?
98%.
How is it like $2 billion in revenue a year? Is that how much they have in assets?
That's crazy.
I guess. But like the future of this, because people were like, they have to diversify their income in some way, and they are looking to talk to like big tech companies. Like I think like Stripe is talking to them, Apple is talking to them, and because of the benefits of a stable coin, they're looking at it for like cross-border payments, lower fees, all of those things to take advantage of that. And so I'm sure like if they did partner with these companies, they would get like some cut of it. And there's also the Genius Act in the United States that's trying to regulate stable coins. And so it's going to the Senate. Like the Senate did an initial vote on it. They still have to do a final vote on it. But if it does get passed, there'll be a lot more stable coin regulation and therefore like adoption, I'm sure, as well.
Yeah. And so what this says about crypto is that the market's heating up, and they say that the crypto winter is continuing to thaw. I always find it so funny.
That.
I love like the crypto language. It's so fun.
Yeah.
And then Gemini confidentially filed for IPO. They're basically like a Coinbase competitor with like some small differences, like slightly lower fees. Some people say better security, but like essentially the same thing, like a place where you can store and trade crypto.
Yeah.
And they were started by the Winklevoss twins.
Yeah.
I don't really know anything.
They have like, wait, their lore is crazy. They basically like sued Mark Zuckerberg and saying that he stole their idea for Connect You, which was like the social networking site they developed at Harvard. And ultimately they ended up settling in 2008 for $65 million. So the two of them got $65 million. They then took that and invested it in Bitcoin at the time. And now they're like billionaires because of it. So they co-founded Gemini in 2014. They used a portion of their settlement to buy Bitcoin. And apparently they own 1% of all Bitcoin in circulation.
Crazy.
Their lure is crazy. Well, because like the whole social network movie was about it, but it was like made before Bitcoin went crazy. And so there's like, I honestly think they need a follow-up movie.
They need a new movie. Yeah, but like the rumors of how much Bitcoin they have are like absolutely insane.
Yeah. Cool. Well, congrats, Circle. Moving on to Omada Health. Omada Health is a virtual chronic care program that's sold to employers and plans. So they care for diabetes, weight loss, hypertension, and MSK. And they also recently IPO'd on June 6th. They priced their IPO at $19 per share and raised roughly $150 million. And they were up 21% by the end of the day.
Their valuation is only around like $1 billion, right?
Yep. And it was roughly on par with its last private valuation. So it was priced in line with investor expectations. And I think the reason as to why it popped a little bit was because it's priced similarly to like Hims, if that makes sense. And Hims has recently done well in the last couple of months. I'm so sad about that because I literally I called them at an all-time low. Anyways, and I didn't buy. Well, I should just take my own investment advice. I don't even know why I don't do that.
You should. They're also the second IPO this year because Hinge Health also recently just IPO'd. And both of these come out of like a really long dry spell of no digital health IPOs because there was a surge in 2021 around COVID time when I think there were 20 in total that year. And then they completely stopped. Yeah.
And then like from 2021 to 2025, it's been like one or two.
That's crazy.
A lot of the 2021 digital health IPOs, a lot of them were first of all by SPAC. So like the bar for the company that was IPOing was lower. Yeah. And then some of them weren't by SPAC, but like a lot of them just weren't profitable at the time of IPO, which is like fine. But then they never ended up reaching the profitability that investors expected. And like they didn't scale well. And so like, for example, like Babylon Health was like one of the companies that went public around 2021. And then it like the company completely collapsed. Like these are in the category SPACs that saw like 99% drops in their stock
Are these
price.
Chamath SPACs?
No, I feel
Probably
like he doesn't
not.
do digital
Yeah.
health.
Yeah.
But like, I mean, people make fun of Chamath SPACs, but like SPACs as a whole did badly too.
Yeah.
Because it's just like, okay, you lowered the bar for a company to IPO, and then the
Like, what'd you
companies that IPO don't
Did
do
bad.
well.
Yeah. Like, what do you think was gonna happen? Yeah.
And also, like, I guess the more optimistic view of it was like acquisitions became hotter. Like, you had like One Medical acquired by Amazon in 2023, and so I think digital health. Also, from a perspective of digital health companies, they started to see acquisitions as like a better deal for like the company itself.
Oh, then IPO.
Than IPOing
Yes.
because so many of the IPOs did so badly. But it is interesting because like obviously the company I work for is like digital health and I'm in telehealth. And like I know like for example, our competitor recently said like they're only around like $1 billion valuation right now, which I guess is big enough. That's what Omada Health was too. But they like recently raised and explicitly were like, we're looking to IPO. And I think like publicly a lot of like comparable companies in the space have said like we want to IPO.
So we'll see more digital health coming up then. Yeah, and then finally moving on to Chime. Chime recently filed their S1 and wants to IPO. Can someone explain what Chime does? I forgot.
They are like free mobile banking. They have like early direct deposits, automatic savings. I think maybe it's just like a way if you are living paycheck to paycheck to get like your paycheck easier.
Okay, so it's like a
Fee-free
personal
ATMs. They're not a bank, but
Yeah.
they have like bank adjacent products.
Yeah. And so they generated $1.67 billion in revenue in 2024 with a net loss of $25 million, which is an improvement from their loss of $203 million in 2023. So that was like the big thing that they needed to do before filing for their S1, which is to approach break-even performance. And so they're planning to sell 32 million shares at $24, targeting an $832 million raise at 11B valuation, which is down from their peak of $25 billion.
Yeah, it's like less than half what
Yeah.
they were worth 4 years ago. So
Yeah,
tough.
it is tough because like 2022 was like some very peak fintech valuations. But I think it's down, it's specifically less than half because I think it's designed to ensure that the deal is attractive and pop a little bit. And so they're basically prioritizing a successful market debut rather than a good valuation.
Yeah, and that makes sense because a lot of companies have been wary to IPO because of the discount that they would have to take right now. Like a lot of companies are like, if we IPO right now, it is going to be at a discount and we don't want to do that for whatever reason it is. Like it doesn't look good, their ego, like who knows what it is. But I think Chime just like taking the L and being like, this is in line with other fintech companies, their valuations in 2021 versus their valuations now. We're just going to go ahead and IPO. I think hopefully it will open the door for other companies that have put their IPOs on pause, like Klarna, to maybe like reevaluate if they should IPO or not, especially if Chime has a successful IPO, which is like TBD.
Yeah. I mean, $1.5 billion in revenue accounts for like kind of like an 8 to 9x multiple for the 11B valuation. So it's pretty in line with what they should be seeing. Like I wouldn't say it's like a discount necessarily. Like I would say those are what the fintech valuations are. And for anyone who's curious, fintech valuations are traditionally very low compared to SaaS valuations. And that's one, because the cost of capital is very high. And so you're always paying, your fees are just generally higher than a SaaS and your margins are a lot lower. And then the second part is that there's always a race to the bottom. So depending on what you're exactly doing, like if you're a Stripe and you're a payment processor, you're always being squeezed on your payment processing margins as well. So yeah, that's pretty much why fintech valuations hover around 10x.
Yeah.
Look at this digital health and fintech IPO.
And then finally, this might be indicating at a Stripe IPO, which everyone's been patiently waiting for the last 4 or 5 years. Stripe is a huge payments
It's crazy that they
processor.
haven't IPO'd.
It is crazy. But they have a large cash reserve, and they can basically raise any amount of money in the private markets. So they have like no reason to IPO. And they can just be super selective on timing. So I feel like they'll just like wait for a lot of other fintech people to IPO.
Yeah.
Because they don't need to.
Do you think their employees that like have wanted to liquidate have just liquidated on secondaries pretty easily?
Yeah. So they're very good about like buybacks, which is why they haven't gotten pressure. And so it's just like whatever the recent valuation is, I think.
Yeah.
And because like people in the private markets will just like pour money into Stripe because they want to, like they've just been fine. Like objectively, like working at Stripe is just like a very stable job.
Not for everyone.
Well, except for me, because I lost it within 6 weeks.
They have layoffs like big tech too.
Yeah, I mean, like I lasted 6 weeks, so. But yeah, IPOs, yay, fun.
Yay.
I don't know. Is there anything else we wanted to say?
Do you think an abnormal IPO is coming?
Coming soon. I don't know when. Someone tell me.
Okay, moving on to Mary Meeker and her AI trend report of 2025. This was a 340-page deck on artificial intelligence trends in 2025, and this basically is her return to public trend analysis after her hiatus from her very famous internet trends report. If you don't know about her, she's been a very key person in the 90s and early 2000s. Specifically, she identified Netscape in 95 and Google in 2004, and was recognized for her ability to just identify major tech trends early. In 2010, she left Morgan Stanley and joined Kleiner Perkins as a partner, where she led investments in companies like Facebook, Spotify, Airbnb, Slack, Ring, and Square. So she is just known for like having a stacked portfolio as an investor.
She's called the queen of the internet.
She is called
and
the queen of
validly
the internet.
so.
Yeah. So when she came out of slumber, it was like a big drop.
If that was my investment portfolio, I just would not be putting together this
Oh,
deck.
definitely not.
You know who's gonna be the next Mary Meeker is our friend Nikhil. He actually would do this.
He would do this. He would do this.
This is the most, like, it really brought me back to my banking and consulting days.
Yeah, it reads like one of those decks.
Yeah, you guys won't have to read it because we'll give you such a good summary. It's one of those decks where it has like some crazy stat in the headline and then like a graph on like every page.
Yeah.
And it's like kind of ugly, but it's just like the banking consulting format that's like never died.
Yeah. It's like the same font, the same color, the same graphics. But yeah, so the initial reactions are that she really harps on AI basically being unprecedented. And
how many times was it? Like 51?
51 times, yeah.
Did you guys command F unprecedented?
No, it was like...
It was in every news article.
Like, oh my God, she's saying it's unprecedented. I mean, everyone fucking knows that it's unprecedented. Like, have we seen what's been going on?
I just command F'd and it said 64, so...
Yeah, who knows? Anyways.
They're wrong.
So the whole thing is that I think...
Never mind. Sorry. It was including the footer.
So you like had to
I'll just stop talking.
So she goes over a bunch of big trends and like basically up into the right trends, and we can break these down further.
Yeah, I feel like in terms of initial reactions, people didn't think it was that surprising necessarily, but I think she did a really good job in telling the story of AI in like different than an AI 2027 way, where it's like this is the future and like this is what might happen, but she like looked at the past and explained like how we got to where we are.
I mean, that's like a really good explanation of like, she didn't fearmonger. She was just like, hey, this is the data of like how fast we're moving, if anyone's curious.
Yeah. I know like one of our things was like she didn't touch that much on safety and regulation, and I don't think it was necessarily a bad thing, because I think a lot of the safety and regulation conversation is like looking forward and predicting like how quickly AI unfolds. And she didn't go down that rabbit hole that much. Like she referenced like these are the AGI timelines that people generally have, but it was much more of like a look backwards.
Yeah.
And I think that's like the value add.
Yeah. And so she first talks about unprecedented user adoption. ChatGPT hit 365 billion searches in 2 years versus Google took 11 years. So it's a 5.5x speed up, as well as ChatGPT has had 8x growth in 16 months. And it translates to, I think, 4 billion in revenue.
Well, yesterday they just came out with their number. It's 10 billion.
It's 10 billion now?
Yeah, it was 5. It was, no, because I looked at that graph too. And like in the graph, it does say 4 billion. But literally it came out yesterday that in 2025, their ARR is 10 billion. And in 2024, it ended at like 5.5, I think.
Yeah.
So they're up like an insane amount.
Yeah. And people are like mad kind of because they're like, oh, you can't compare it with Google because people didn't have like mobile devices. And it's like, I don't think she's really trying to say anything about.
Are people actually mad? I feel like if this report made you mad, like you actually need to get a fucking life.
No, people are mad. Like the Reddit articles are like, yeah, she just like,
it's like straight. It's like facts. Like she's not even saying anything that you need to get mad about.
No, like the deep Reddit archives are like people annoyed that she's like still fear mongering or whatever.
I feel like she's not.
But she's not. Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
I agree with that. Like Google, it's like basically like ChatGPT took 0.2 years to get to 100 million users. TikTok took a year. Google took like 4 to 6 years. They don't say officially. And obviously part of that is like Google, at the time of Google, hardware and software was being distributed at the same time. People were starting to get good phones, good computers. Now the hardware issue, I feel like we've seen very little innovation in hardware and a lot of innovation in software in like the last 2-3 years. But I mean, yeah, that's just like an explanation of the trend versus you can't get mad at the trend. It is what it is.
Yeah. She acknowledges this as like a new era of knowledge distribution. There's like the pre-printing press era, the post-printing press era, and then the post-internet era. And so the printing press was invented in 1440 and the internet was publicly released in 93. And they represent like basically static and physical delivery of information and the transition to active and digital delivery. And finally, the release of GPT in 2022 represents the mark in generative delivery. And so she just says that this is like, these are the eras of knowledge distribution and it's like happening faster. And who knows, like maybe like telepathic delivery is like the next one.
The graph here, we already have that on this pod.
Yeah.
Both of you slept in.
The graph you're talking about is interesting too because it shows how like technological innovations are exponential, not linear.
Yeah.
And that makes sense because like things build on each other. But that means that like, yes, like AI's growth is like super exponential, but it's like in line with the overall exponential trend of how technology moves in general.
Yeah. And also GDP as well.
Yeah.
I saw something that was
Everything's just like exponential. That was my takeaway.
Yeah. Something that I thought was pretty interesting was the USA computing related patents granted annually has had an insane speed up in the last year. So basically in the years between 2003 and 95, which is 8 years, there were 6,000 patents made. And then the next 18 years after that until 2022, there was only 1,000 patents granted. And then in the last year, there's 6,000 patents granted, which is crazy because like the early 2000s, like I thought we were doing great in like technological development.
I feel like it was more like big tech, right?
But also like patents don't mean much. Like you can get a patent for anything, including things that you never use. So like let's say you work for a company and you never actually build the thing, you can literally get a patent on the prototype of something.
That's true, but
I think
like,
it's just like a proxy. Like it's like one patent might not mean anything, but the overall like the overall rate of patents is like clearly correlated to actual moments of time of technological innovation.
That's true.
There probably are trends that are like it's more or less in vogue to get a patent, but when you zoom out, it's probably still like a leading indicator.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That's how she starts off the report, which is basically like usage is up, and then she goes into infrastructure improvements and how much cash is being spent on both GPUs and data center build out. And so she says data center build out is up 49% year over year, and what's the craziest example is XAI's new facility in Tennessee took just 120 days to make, and it's a 750,000 square foot facility.
What was insane about that to me is they were like comparing it to how long it takes a house to build, and it's like that's not like long enough to build a house, but they built like this insane data center.
I know, if we could just speed up building housing.
I was gonna say, so does that mean that we could have just done it that?
It's just like how much capital is like poured into it. That's like it's a pure measure of like how much capital.
But it's also like I thought it was supposed to be like hours it takes to do something.
No, because like remember that show like that was like move that bus and they like build a house in a day.
Yeah. Oh my god, I love that show.
Like the home renovation show. Yeah. Like literally like 100 people would just build a house in a day. Or like a week. It was a week. Okay. But like it was crazy.
Yeah, I guess like that timelines are fake.
Yeah. And so data center build out is super up and
I thought just the last thing on that is like there was this one line that was like in 2019 you could find AI under like the research and development line item of like a 10K of a company, and now you'll find it under like the CapEx. And I thought that was like a good explanation, like overall like zoom out
Okay.
of like how the investments,
trend.
Yeah.
the trend and like how the investment's going to like data centers.
Yeah. And then specifically the tech big six is loaded with a lot of free cash, so they don't expect that cash to slow down, because if you look at Apple, Nvidia, Microsoft, Google, Amazon, and Meta, they still have billions of dollars in free cash flow that they can now allocate towards AI. So at any point, like, they could still be spending more money. But specifically, as the data center build out is higher, a lot of energy and cost to serve models have been decreased substantially. And specifically, this is a crazy stat actually. The energy required per LLM token is down 105,000 to generate a token in the last 10 years off the NVIDIA GPUs.
Yeah.
So, gotta go NVIDIA.
Yeah.
And the cost to serve a model is also 99.7% lower over the last 2 years. Something that people have been noticing is that model performance is converging, meaning like Google's, OpenAI's, DeepSeek's, they all have like very similar model performance, and they were a lot different a year ago. Like, OpenAI was a clear winner over a bunch of people, but now we're kind of like living in a world where all of these model players are like at kind of benchmarking the same, and it's like, who's the latest release to kind of be the best
but
model.
it's like so incremental. Like, I think what was recently,
it is very incremental, yeah.
like Claude 4 compared to Codex
in terms of the benchmarks.
It was like basically the exact same thing.
Which makes LLMs and AI basically like a commodity in terms of how it's priced and evaluated.
Yeah.
And then that becomes interesting because basically like the whole thing with commodities like oil and stuff is that it's a really like tough business in terms of the margins.
Yeah.
And in this specific scenario, you see like about $95 billion in funding to like all of these companies like Anthropic, OpenAI, and then you see about $12 billion in revenue.
Yeah.
And so there's a huge capital overhang in terms of the VC spend that's gone into like training these like $100 million to $1 billion models versus like how much revenue they're generating.
I mean, like, when you're selling AI, what you're really selling is tokens, and the price of tokens is going down. And so when the price of something you're selling is depreciating at an exponential rate, and there's a huge capital overhang, a bubble will pop.
Yeah. The entire takeaway of this was like, with the level of burn that AI has, like, how's that ever going to be profitable? My question is, I feel like the model players, like, still, why would they not be able to just like raise prices if they all do it? Or am I missing something?
No, you're not missing something. This is like so she compares it actually to Uber, where in the beginning Ubers were priced really low. They were like, I think even like at the beginning it was like $2, and it was just to gain user adoption. And now you see Uber's priced at their correct economic rate. So model players will have to raise prices, like the kind of the only way that they get out of this. I think it's like how long can they keep creating like that next model, because it costs a lot to make the next model, but it doesn't cost any money to serve that model. I think what they were betting on, like at least a year ago, is like, if we spend a lot of money and we truly make the best model, we'll just get a bunch of users. And now that picture is changing, you're seeing them over index on product acquisitions, and now you're seeing like OpenAI, for example, acquire Windsurf, all of these different things. So it seems that they're realizing that that the model players aren't going to be competing on model performance anymore.
I also just think that the way that these companies have approached their business model isn't purely driven by profitability. Like, for example, OpenAI was like created to generally benefit humanity, and like it was originally a research project. People seem like really concerned by the business model of AI companies. I just don't really get it. It's like they'll raise prices, and they have a lot more of an ability to do that than like an Uber Eats, where it's like, if I can't get my delivery through Uber Eats, like I'll just go pick it up. But like,
there's no alternative.
There's no
here.
alternative.
Yeah.
To, like,
and it's also like the big players are like OpenAI, Anthropic, Google.
Yeah, there's not
Microsoft.
that many.
Like, there's not that many, because it's so expensive to build these foundational models. It's not like anyone else can get into the space, and the people that originally did try to get into the space are no longer there.
The barrier of entry is virtually impossible.
Yeah.
No one's even like trying to compete. On the model layer.
And then the next thing that she talks about is the productivity and workforce effects that we're seeing from AI.
Yeah, so basically US job postings for AI related IT roles have jumped 448% since 2018, and she talks about how there's like a fundamental transformation and shift in the labor market, and that it's really important to invest in both AI talent and upskilling your existing workforce, because that is the future. And I think that's something that we generally understand, But in practice, it's really difficult. Like if you think of like the big tech companies, getting that many people to adopt a new process and way of thinking, and something that a lot of these people have done for the last like 20 years, it is like a difficult task.
Yeah. And she talks about it in a kind of positive light.
I feel like she talks about how like this new headcount that has increased in the AI space is skewing towards high skill, low volume roles. And so that's kind of like the new way of the world working. And
Wait,
I
what
saw
do you
like
mean
an
by low
analyst,
volume?
like it's basically like if you have a person managing a team of agents, like you no longer have a team of junior engineers, which is why we're seeing new grad roles not exist anymore, because you need more of those like mid to senior level role people that you like are higher leverage in a way and can like manage a team of agents. And Signalfire recently did a job report on this as well, where they also showed that in 2024, ML and AI jobs were up 27% versus sales jobs were down 11%. So there is just like that skew continuing to grow.
Yeah. And then finally, she does touch on the global race, which I don't think there was any new information that she necessarily harped on here. It was just like a repeat of like a lot of things we already know, which is that China's government initiatives to shift the country from low cost, high value manufacturing has actually worked, specifically in the whole Made in China 2025 plan that they started back in 2015, and they are the dominant global supplier in rare earth elements, which is used to create advanced electronics, defense systems, and clean energy infrastructure. So the imbalance that China has on this part of the market makes the U.S. worried. It's nothing new. And then finally, like Taiwan has specifically TSMC, which produces 80 to 90% of the most advanced semiconductors. And so because the U.S. has a good relationship with Taiwan, we have not faced like necessarily a war from China. Because like the balance is like somewhat equal. The power balance is like somewhat equalized. But I don't think she necessarily calls out anything net new, at least with the global arms race that's happening.
Yeah, I agree.
It's actually a good summary of a lot of the discussions we've been having in the last month or two around AI. We often talk about one or two of these things. It was a good zoom out on like what's been happening. And like you said, Anika, in the beginning, it was not forward looking. It was always just looking at the data of the past and comparing it to our like historical precedent of how we've seen this speed up before.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, with that, we wrap up our episode.
Sorry, the last thing I was just going to say is I feel like her tone is like the tone that finance people use when talking about things, which is like different than the tone that tech people use. That was just like my personal perspective. And I think like it's interesting to read like what reads like a finance person's take on AI.
Why? What's
take on AI? I just think like finance people are like very matter of fact and like not. Okay. What it is like in the probabilities of things that are going to happen. I think like finance people and equity research stays like well within like only things that we know are extremely probable to happen. Yeah. And I think when you read like Dario's Anthropic papers and stuff, like a lot of that is like lower probability scenarios and how they'd play out because that's like where they specialize is like how might tech develop because their whole thing is like how tech will develop versus like finance people look like empirically at like how data has played out and what that could mean if that makes sense.
Yeah, that is really cool. Anyways, this has been a fun episode. Thanks for listening.
Fun topics, fun episode.
We have to go to our real jobs now.
We do.
Okay, bye.
Bye.